Many people want to succeed in life, but very few of them make a deliberate, aggressive, sustained effort to actually read and learn and upgrade their skills in the critical areas that drive success in their chosen field. Now, what you need to understand is that success is not something that happens by accident. People don't just stumble into success. If you study top people in any field, what you find invariably is that all of these people are very aggressive about self-education, about reading books, about getting better, about breaking down all the skills that make up their chosen field, and just lasering in on each one and just getting really fucking great in those chosen areas. This is how they achieve mastery in their field, and there's really no substitute for this. If you look at the stats on the reading habits of millionaires, CEOs, top people in any field, what you find is these people read something like 4 to 6 books per month. Compare that against the average person. These people, maybe they read like 1 nonfiction book per year. So we're talking about like a 50x differential in terms of the reading habits and how much time and energy they spend investing in themselves. And that's a big part of why they get those extraordinary results. Books in particular, these are an excellent way to learn because what you're really doing is getting decades of information that you can just learn in a matter of days. If you're reading books written by top experts in a certain field, these are people it took them 20, 30, 40 years to go through the process of advancing in their field, going through all those painful experiences of learning and face planting and failing and just figuring out how to succeed. And they take all the best principles, all the best lessons, all the best bits, and they just write them down in a book that you can just purchase for like 10 to 20 bucks, and you can just read it, and you can just download that information into your brain to learn how to get the same results. And books in particular, you can really get a level of depth from reading a book that it's hard to get from anywhere else. If you're just reading like some shitty blog post article that some guy wrote down, it's very hard to get the same level and quality of information that you get from a book written by a top expert in that field. So that's where you want to focus a lot of your self-education efforts. If you're reading the right books in the right ways, this can really shave years, even decades off the time that it takes for you to achieve your goals, and it can just really speed the whole process up for you. So it's very important to develop this habit and stick with it over the long run. Now, obviously, you want to focus on reading nonfiction books. Fiction books, a complete waste of your fucking time. Some detective story, some romance novel, some Harry Potter type shit, that's not going to help you to improve your results. And so really you want to focus your attention on reading books that give you practical information on how to get better results. Jim Rohn, he had a funny line where he said, find out what poor people read and don't read it. What do most people read if they read anything at all? Newspaper articles, news stories about like gossip and political stuff that has no relevance to the actual field they're working in. And so you want to make sure you're reading the right books in the right ways. And that means specific nonfiction books. It means you have to be very selective about choosing the right things to read at a given time based upon your current needs. Your goal is not to collect a bunch of miscellaneous facts, like you're going to go on Jeopardy and, tell us all the 50 state capitals. What's the 4th tallest mountain in the world? You don't want to just be a human encyclopedia who just has like this meaningless information in your head. So you have to just keep in mind that your goal fundamentally is to upgrade your skills in the key areas that drive results. Brian Tracy had a good quote where he said, knowledge is power, but it's not just any knowledge. Otherwise, librarians would be rich. It's specialized knowledge in the critical areas that people will pay you for to get better results. What you really need to do is break down your field by all the component skills that go into it. You need to take whatever your field is and just slice it down and say, these are the areas I need to get good at. And it's really important to go much deeper than just the surface level title of what you do. Like if you're a YouTuber, you don't just read like 3 books on YouTube. If you're in sales, you don't just say like, I'm just going to read a couple books on sales and I should be good to go. What you need to do is go really deep, go really fine-grained, and just break it down and say, these are all the different areas that go into it. And really what you find out when you do this is there are way more skills going into a certain thing than you might initially expect. Like with YouTube, for example, there's a ton of shit that goes into it. There's graphic design, there's Photoshop, there's copywriting with like, the title crafting, the thumbnail creation, enticing people to click on the video in the first place. There's video editing, there's learning about the specific video software that you're using. If you're trying to make your videos funny or whatever the fuck, you might learn about like comedy writing in particular. How to become a more effective public speaker. Really, when you actually start to break it down like this, you find there's a shit ton of different skills that go into a certain field. And if there's a lot to learn, then you better get fucking moving. If you're doing an online business, e-commerce, there could be everything from web design to pay-per-click advertising to social media marketing. There's a lot of skills that go into it. And so what you want to do is identify the most vital skills to focus on at your current time. And how do you decide what's most important? Really, there are 2 ways you could think about this that allow you to focus on the right area at the right time. Number 1, you could just ask, where am I weakest? You might be, reasonably good in like these 4 areas, but area number 5, you could just be absolutely fucking terrible and you totally suck. And so you would focus on that particular area. Brian Tracy, he talks about how our income is held back by our weakest key skill. It acts like a bottleneck or drag that really just kind of sets the limit on what your earning potential is. And so by lifting yourself up in this area, it can really just take you to the next level in terms of your earning ability. The next question you can ask is, what skill areas most drive results in my chosen fields? There might be like 20 skills that could like conceivably factor into it, but it might be that maybe like 3 to 5 of them are most critical and most drive the results. And so you'd probably want to focus on these top ones, because if they're responsible for driving like 80 to 90% of the results, focus here first. And that's like the 80-20 rule, where you're focusing on the few critical things that are most responsible for the results. And what you do, you pick a skill, you pick an area where you're weak. It's really important to focus on this. You get really fucking great in this one area, and then you move on to the next skill after you've gotten really fucking strong in this particular area. Now, you don't just read 1 to 2 books in a particular area and just assume you're all set and good to go. I would say at least like 3 to 5 per skill area. Because if you just get one book, it could be the case that the one you happen to buy could be like the worst of, the 5 that you end up reading. So I'd say at least like 3 to 5. If it's an area where you can go really deep and it's really critical, you might want to do even more than that. Especially if it's a field where it's like you can go more advanced in terms of your knowledge, like pay-per-click advertising for, Google and other sites like this. You can get the basic information, and then some books, they're like 1,000 pages long, and they go super fucking deep, and you get so many great ideas for how to improve in this area. So it's like there are the more basic books and then the super advanced ones where you can go super deep. Same with Photoshop. You can get basic books on like how, the fucking layout, the different things you can do, the basic stuff, and then you get the really advanced ones that allow you to go really deep in specific areas and get really fucking good. Especially if the skill area is super critical to driving results, that's probably an area where you want to go super deep. And if it's something tangential, off to the side, not as directly relevant, maybe like that 3 to 5 range is probably a good start. Now, you're not just reading just to read. You're not reading books just so you can say, look how many books I read this year, look at my wonderful collection of books. You're reading to actually get better results in these critical areas. So you want to make sure, number one, that you're applying what you actually learn. Ideally, you want to implement it immediately into what you're doing. If you're in sales and you learn some new closing techniques, just run out that day and just try to test them out if possible. If it's something where it's like you can test the thing while you're reading about it, if it's something with like web design or programming or Photoshop or video editing, while you're there reading the book, you want to make sure you have your fucking computer open and you're testing the shit as you go. Because if you're just reading a book on like Photoshop or whatever, and you're just like, oh, look at all these keyboard shortcuts. Wow, look at these interesting settings I've never heard of before. That's nice. But you're not actually testing the shit in the actual program. 99% of this information is just going to go in one ear and out the other. A lot of areas we learn by actually doing, by practicing, by actually getting in there and like testing out the techniques and, developing that muscle memory of like navigating the interface of the fucking software and like doing the button clicks and doing the keyboard shortcuts and actually applying the things we're learning to like projects we worked on recently. And so that's very important as well, is to make sure you're applying what you learn, implement immediately, test it as you go, versus like, I'm just going to sit down and read this book and forget 90% of it. You also want to let go of the A student mentality where it's like, I need to read from cover to cover, every page, every note, every chapter, every section, every fucking paragraph. I need to read every last word of it. You need to get to the point where you're able to identify what material is relevant to what you're doing and then skim and skip past the irrelevant shit. Like if you're reading a book where it's talking about Photoshop techniques for a certain type of editing that's totally fucking irrelevant to what you're doing, just skip over that section immediately. Like there's one book I'm reading right now. It talks about another program that's similar to Photoshop, but it's not even Photoshop. It's called Camera Raw. It's where you like do photography stuff directly from like your camera SD card and edit that stuff directly. It's totally irrelevant to what I'm doing because I'm doing like custom shit that I create inside of there. I just skip over that stuff. I'm not going to fucking waste my time reading this. It's the same with any skill area, any field you're reading. If you're reading a copywriting book about like how to write better ad copy, whatever the fuck it is, and it talks about like a specific style of technique, like, how to deal with industry clients or whatever, and it's just totally irrelevant, identify the shit that's not directly appropriate to your needs and just skip past that shit, skim past it, and just get to the stuff that's directly relevant to what you're working on. You don't get extra credit for wasting your fucking time here, and really the goal is to just use your time as best as possible to just learn the most practical information for your needs. Now, I would actually recommend that you don't highlight books. A lot of people recommend that you underline, you highlight stuff that's important, and I used to be a hardcore aggressive highlighter. I would tell myself, I'm going to go back and just read the highlights, and it's just like the best of the best bits of the books that I'll be downloading into my brain. when I go back and revisit these. What I found is you always highlight based upon your current needs and the current projects you're working on. So if you're working in like a web design business, you're going to highlight based upon like how it's relevant to the current projects you're working on. 2-3 years down the line, you might be doing something totally fucking different. So it could be the stuff you highlighted then isn't relevant now, and stuff you didn't highlight in the past would be helpful now. So what I would recommend is you just don't highlight the fucking thing and you just read through the shit quickly. You can get through books like 2 to 3 times faster that way versus, picking up the fucking highlighter and stopping and highlighting the shit, picking it up again. You lose your momentum. Just go through it faster and you can get through books like 2 to 3 times more quickly. But Anton, what if the information's important? Shouldn't I highlight it then? Dude, if it's important, you should put it in play. You should internalize it. You should make it a part of your fucking toolkit. If a book is garbage, don't waste your time on it. Don't feel this need to read it to completion. If it's total trash, if you're not getting anything out of it, just throw it in the garbage can where it belongs. Another great Brian Tracy quote, he said the best way to save time on a book, throw the book away if it's of no use to you. Now you want to focus on reading quality books. It's really about quality over quantity. You don't want to read some shitty ebook that some person's using for like lead gen for their email marketing, where it's like 58 pages and they just wrote it in an evening. You don't want to read some garbage, thin little pamphlet that some fucking nobody on Amazon published just to try to like make a couple bucks. Really what you want to do is focus on the thick, dense, really information-packed books written by the top experts in that particular field. So really when selecting what books to read and buy and focus your time and energy on, you want to focus on number 1, author expertise. Look at the person's bio and just find out who is this person. Is it a person who's gotten practical results in a field? Is it somebody who's a renowned, well-respected expert? Or is it just some random fucking guy that you've never heard of before? And then number 2, look at the reviews on the books. If you're buying it online, make sure there are lots of reviews. If it's a bestseller, then it's probably a good book. If it's something with like 4, 10 reviews or whatever the fuck, and they were all published in the same time frame, very likely that those are just like some fake reviews that a person purchased just to try to get like some fake social proof. So the more reviews, the more like bestseller rewards and stuff, and then like the more competent the expert is, most likely the better the book is going to be. Now, you don't want to count on willpower and motivation to get your reading done. You don't want to just work in spurts and flashes when you're feeling up to it and fully caffeinated. What you want to do is have an actual like consistent system that you follow so that you're just consistently reading day after day, week after week, and you're just constantly getting better and you're constantly learning how to get better results. Something I would recommend is putting in place some sort of trackable habits. Putting in place some sort of KPIs, some sort of metrics where you can either hit the fucking target or not hit the target for the day, and it's just either a yes or a no. I did the fucking job, I got the results, I got the job done, or I didn't. So you could say something like, I'm going to read for 2 hours per day, and I'm just going to track how many days in a row I've read. You just do it every single day. You just never skip a day. You just never make an excuse. And that's a great way to stick with it over the long run versus counting on willpower and I'll do a little bit here, then I'll stop for a fucking week. No, you want to have a consistent, predictable system so you're just constantly getting better. Also make it a habit to just use whatever spare little chunks of time that you have to just do some more reading. Like if you're working a day job and you have breaks at work, just read on your breaks. A 30-minute lunch, 2 15-minute breaks like a lot of companies have, that's an hour per day right there. Dude, run the math on that. People say, I don't have time to read. I don't have time for this shit. Dude, if you only just read on your breaks and lunches at work, that's 5 hours a week times 52 weeks. What is that, like 260 hours per year? Let's say it takes you 10 hours to read a book on average. 260 divided by 10, we're talking 26 books per year just reading on your lunches and breaks at work. And it's like people say, I don't have time to read. But dude, you have these little, what are called gifts of time that are just all around you. You're at you're getting like a fucking oil change, some jerk off bullshit, like you're in the waiting room at a doctor's office or whatever. Dude, don't just sit there with your thumb up your ass and just like scroll social media. Pull out a book, have some books with you, keep them in your bag, whatever the fuck, your backpack, and just have them there ready so that you can just use that time to just read and get smarter. You also want to eliminate the idea that reading is for nerds, it's uncool, it's time to grow the fuck up and grow out of that mindset. Reframe it, think about it differently, and just say to yourself, reading is for millionaires. Reading, it's for winners. Reading is for the people who become fucking great and famous and awesome and get outstanding fucking results. If there are people who are like laughing at you and making fun of you for reading, dude, I can promise you these people are fucking losers and they're going absolutely nowhere in life if that's their attitude towards reading. Another big mistake people make is assuming that they're already competent in key critical skill areas when really they're just not that fucking great. You tell them like you should read in this area, read in that area. They're like, no, I know how to do all that. Like I'm fine. I don't need to read in that area. And you have to understand that it's like there's a big difference between being minimally functional in a certain area where it's like you can do enough to just get by versus like getting outstanding results and doing an outstanding fucking job in this area. It's It's like you might have a shitty, rusted, beat up minivan that you can use to drive you to the fucking grocery store. It's very different from the person who's in like a high performance, specially designed fucking sports car, F1 racing vehicle, designed to just like absolutely fucking crush and get them there quickly. It's a totally different ballgame we're talking about. So don't make the mistake of thinking that you're already good in a certain area when really you're just capable of doing like the bare fucking minimum to get like the smallest amount of results possible. Fundamentally, just understand that mediocre outputs do not produce outstanding results. Now, you also want to make sure that you're not afraid to spend money on this. A lot of people, they're just terrified of the idea. They look at a price tag of a book. Dude, some of the books I'm getting, they're like $50, $100 if it's like really fucking dense, like these 1,000 fucking page, like information packed books and shit. Don't be afraid to spend money on this, because this is the single best investment you can make. Investing in yourself, investing in your skills, upgrading your ability to get better results, and ultimately improve your ability to make more money over the fucking long run. Dude, the ROI on investing in yourself, that's just completely fucking limitless. And there's no better way to spend your money than investing in yourself. If you're truly just broke as fuck and you have just no money to spend on this whatsoever, which I really doubt for most fucking people is the case, just get a library card, read some books at the public library, start with that, and there's really no excuse for not reading. Also understand there's more to getting results than just like field-specific skills. You know, if you're like a stand-up comedian, you don't want to just look at stuff relevant to like stand-up comedy. You want to also think big picture and broadly about other stuff that's going to help you to improve your results. Some of these topics and areas, they really transcend any particular like career path, and it's really just sort of like universal skills that you want to learn about and get better in. Stuff like time management, productivity, discipline, willpower, overall mindset, and positivity, and like goal setting and stuff like that. These are important as well, so don't neglect these. Don't just become good at like the technical stuff, but you want to just be well-rounded. You want to have really good, solid skills in all the critical areas that drive results. Now, this is a habit that's hard to stick with over the long run, especially if you're doing it every single day consistently and you're holding yourself accountable. Dude, you're going to be fucking bored some days. You're going to be tired. You're not going to want to do it. And it's really important to just stick with it and maintain that discipline over the long run. Other people, they might be out having fun and relaxing and playing video games and getting wasted and watching television. You're focused, you're clear about the skill areas you want to get really fucking great in. They might be laughing at you for spending all this time reading and calling you a nerd. But dude, when you become really fucking great in your chosen field, you're going to have the last fucking laugh. Hope you found this helpful. If you enjoyed this video, do me a favor and share it with someone who you think will like it. Hit that fucking like button, post a comment telling me how awesome my videos are, and subscribe and check back for more videos.